Hey folks, Rob Daniels here from the movie, TV, and video game soundtrack program Visions in Sound. I can be found at 12 to 2 a.m. every Saturday morning on Mix 98.5. You can also find me on my website, visionsinsound.ca, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm here to talk about all of the wonderful Christmas. Well, first of all, I have to say, hey, it's Christmas Day. Christmas Day. And it's wonderful to be here with you, and I'm glad that you're spending a little bit of time with me. I'm going to be doing something that's been kind of a Christmas tradition for a long time. In any case, I'm here to also talk about Christmas specials. And if you are a child that was born in like the 70s and lived during the 80s and 90s, you would remember these Christmas specials, and they came out every year around this time. There would be stuff like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Little Drummer Boy. You'd have Charlie Brown Christmas. You'd have a few others. But the one that I remember the most was How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And to me, that was one of the... If you didn't have the Grinch, if you didn't have Frosty the Snowman, if you didn't have... Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, if you didn't have those specials, it just wasn't Christmas. For some reason, also, that The Sound of Music got in there as well, but that's another story for another time. Anyway, so yeah, the soundtrack to How the Grinch Stole Christmas has a very interesting, not necessarily a history, but here is the Mercury one, the one that I first fell in love with the soundtrack. But in the 90s, Kid Rhino released this one, and I haven't been able to see it anywhere else. It popped up. It's not a very long soundtrack, but it's got enough of a different stuff on it that it gives it a little bit of a different feel. It also has music from Horton Hears a Who, but we won't get into that today. But just have a listen to this opening track from How the Grinch Stole Christmas from 1966. So yeah, this is some great stuff from the Dr. Seuss special. Yeah, this again hard. I've never seen this one. I've seen other ones, a longer one that has like 27 cues on it. Anyway, regardless of that fact. So here, have a listen to some of the other music that appeared on the special.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus. You're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel. You're a monster, Mr. Grinch. Your heart's an empty hole. Your brain is full of spiders. You've got garlic in your soul, Mr. Grinch. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5-foot pole.
Then he loaded loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he whistled for Max. Then the Grinch said, "Get up!" And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town.
So yeah, every year, well, okay, a number of years ago, probably about maybe closer to like 5 or 6 years ago, my late wife Dorothea bought me a copy of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And the first year I got it, my mom suggested that I make it a yearly thing to read it to someone. So that first year, I was feeling really sick. I had this really bad throat thing. It was kind of really raspy and that sort of thing, and rough. But I still read it, and it definitely had the Grinch voice in there. In any case, I also did a reading a number of years ago as well from the show. The recording is around somewhere. I'll play it if I have it.
He stared down from his cave with a sour, Grinchy frown at the warm-lighted windows below in the town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath.
"And they're hanging their stockings,"
he snarled with a sneer.
"Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here."
Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming.
"I must find a way to keep Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, I know, all the Who girls and boys will wake bright and early. Then they'd rush for their toys. And then all the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing I hate, is all the noise, 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 noise."
But yeah, here is my copy of the Grinch, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And this, like I said, was given to me by my late wife Dorothea. And again, I went during COVID, during those rough times. Every Christmas I would read this. So yeah, here we are. This is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I love the dedication that Dorothea puts in there. Dear Rob, enjoy this book as I know you will. Loads of love, Dorothea. So yeah, here's my annual reading of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. And the Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be that his head wasn't screwed on just right. Could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise, noise, noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down for a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and the rare Who roast beast, which is something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what I'll do. The Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. He chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked round, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the Grinch? Oh, no. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, and he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. And the Grinch said, giddy up! And the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed. Then he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out, the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant, all round the room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums, and he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch, very nimbly, stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. Then the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and what he saw was a small Who, Cindy Lou Who was no more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child, and he patted her head, and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and he stuffed the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing with the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1:15 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbings, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings and the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-pooh to the Who's," he was grinchiously humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're waking up now, and I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a moment or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, 'Boo-hoo!'" "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, it sounded very merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. Very. He stared down at Whoville, the Grinch popped his eyes, and he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing, without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came. Just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. Then he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys, and he brought back the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. And there you go. My annual reading of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm glad you're sticking with me. And I just wanted to say this. First of all, thank you for spending the time with me that you have, for listening to me ramble on about soundtracks and such. Really enjoy it. I'm glad you're here. Please like, share, subscribe. I'd like to get to 100 subscribers. I know I probably won't reach it till by the end of the year, but I will eventually. I appreciate it. And with that in mind, if you're interested in any of the film, television, or video game music that I do play on my show, you can follow me every week on Mix 98.5, 12 to 2 a.m. every Saturday morning. I can also be found on my website, visionsinsound.ca. I'm on the Twitter, @visionssound. I can also be found on Blue Sky, at visionsinsound.bsky.social. And I can also be found on GoodPods, a downloadable app for your phone or other type devices, and on many of the other podcatchers out there, including the likes of Apple Music. Just type in Visions in Sound. You'll find me that way. So with that, folks, again, I give to you a Merry Christmas. However you celebrate it, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and as my late wife Dorothea would say, love each other, care for each other, and don't let time go by without saying the things that are important, because one day you might not get a chance to. Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you in the new year. Bye for now.
Welcome, Christmas. Bring your cheer. Cheer to all who's far and near. Christmas Day is in our grasp, so long as we have hands to clasp. Christmas Day will always be, just as long as we have we. Welcome Christmas while we stand, heart to heart and hand in hand.